those who would destroy our way of life because of their pretended concern over what Soviet Russia may think of us. To all of these and their confederates, comrades and allies, let me make it abundantly clear for the record, now and hereafter, I call upon the people of Virginia to stand firmly with me in this struggle. Be not dismayed by recent judicial deliverances. I propose to restore the tax revenues of this Commonwealth to the control of the people. They and they alone will decide these issues. United in the common purpose of defending constitutional government and advancing the welfare of our children, with determination more relentless than ever before, we have just begun to fight.
Well, Linda, with integration as real and as close as it appears to be now, how do you feel about the rightness or the wrongness of it?
Well, that's hard to say. I feel that I want to go to school in my town. I don't like going too far after school. It's tiring, and it really, the integration problem doesn't bother me so much as the problem of going to school does.
We plan to work closely with the state organization to ensure that the public school system of Virginia will continue. It is presently guaranteed by the state constitution, and we will insist that this guarantee shall remain in the state constitution of Virginia. We hope that in Charlottesville that a great deal of the bitterness and rancor which has built up over these last few months will now abate, and that possibly in the entire state we can move forward in a better aura of understanding and cooperation.
How do you feel about it?
You just heard how I felt about it.
I didn't hear what you said.
Well, I don't think I could repeat the same thing twice.
Do you think your child's doing better in the program?
I think he is doing better. He's taking more interest, and I think he appreciates it more.
And do you intend to keep them there?
I absolutely do.
Did he want to come over here this morning?
Yes, he did.
And where had he been going to school?
Roosevelt High in Washington.
And do you think he'll find things different here?
No.
Was he going to an integrated school in Washington? I guess he was.
Yes, sir.
And are you from Front Royal?
Yes, I am.
Bill, you're a senior in high school?
Yes, sir, that's right.
You attend the private school?
Yes, sir, I do.
Is any organized move afoot to boycott Warren County High?
No, sir, there's no organized movement at the present, but I was hoping there would be.
Well, let me
Not
ask...
only for myself, but for the others, you know, for the future effects it could have.
You think any of the white students at all will show up here in the future, or today maybe?
I look for approximately 15, I would imagine. I don't think over that number will show up.
I do say this, that Prince Edward is just as close to the mixing of the races in her public schools as she was 150 years ago. There'll be none there. There'll be no public schools when the pressures of that decree are laid down on Prince Edward County. The local authorities will not appropriate funds, The decision does point out the timeliness of the action taken by the recent session of the General Assembly in placing that control in the hands of local government and in providing scholarships for children irrespective of race to aid them in their education.
We do not. We feel that GALAX is not bound to take care of these colored students since this is a new deal and a new situation in school affairs as I see it. Thank you very much, Mr. Anderson.
Well, with me, I don't much believe that they should come, but they have to go so far to high school over at Whiffle, so I guess that way it'll end up, they'll probably just come on up here because they don't have a high school over here. And as long as they keep to themselves and don't bother nobody else, I guess everything will be all right.
Thank you very much, Pete.
We're in the warehouse of McKesson Robbins here in Roanoke, where the Vice President and Division Manager of McKesson Robbins, Mr. Don Ahern, is going to tell us a little bit about the situation that exists insofar as the supply of polio vaccine here in our area. Health Department, I understand, has an ample supply of polio vaccine for the next 2 weeks, but a number of epidemics have broken out in other areas across the country. How has that affected our supply of vaccine locally?
Well, it's pretty well cut down on our supply coming in now. However, at retail level, it's in very short supply. We feel, however, in the doctor's offices that there's an adequate supply to take care of any emergencies that we may have. And Dr. Glendye at the Health Department says that she has an ample amount to handle any foreseeable emergencies or catastrophes in the next 2 weeks. We feel within that period of time that barring epidemics in other parts of the country, that we'll have more than an adequate supply here in Roanoke to handle anything that may come up.
We'll have to wait and see, but I hope we do.
General, what do you think of Premier Khrushchev's visit to the United States? Do you think it will accomplish anything?
Well, I think a lot of us have mixed feelings on it. We sometimes wonder whether or not the immediate effect isn't bad because of its propaganda value to the communists. But I think most of us believe that in the long run, the long-term effect of it should be good.
In connection with this, do you think we should accede to the Russian demands to pull troops out of Berlin and leave it as a neutral city?
I do not, because I don't think we could trust them to carry out any promises unless we're there to see that they're carried out.
General, do you think there's any sincerity whatever connected with Khrushchev's disarmament proposals he's made since he's been over here?
I don't know. I think probably there is. Let's hope so. Heretofore, they've always talked about disarmament, but when you tried to set up some form of check and control to make sure that they carried out their part of it, well, they backed off. Maybe now they will consent to some kind of a check.
Thank you very much, General Bradley.
Finally, one more question, General Bradley. In light of the Cold Wars and Russian aggression, what do you think the chances are right now for a lasting peace?
Oh, I don't see any immediate danger of war as long as we stay strong enough to discourage someone from jumping us.
Well, thank you very much, sir.
Reverend Lawson, what are the purposes behind the lunch counter demonstrations, the nonviolent type?
Well, the lunch counter demonstration is, of course, one nonviolent technique. And the general purpose of nonviolence is to create the atmosphere in which social injustice can be removed and yet done in such a fashion that people will continue to live side by side as genuine neighbors. In other words, nonviolence makes somehow a basic appeal to the moral nature and character of human life. And in doing so, then, tries to get people to make a basic decision on behalf of justice and righteousness as a fundamental decision.
We are grateful to the many individuals, groups, and organizations for the excellent assistance given in all phases of school operation incident to the opening of our 35 schools. I wish to express special appreciation to the newspapers, all radio and television stations, city officials, teachers, and school principals for their splendid cooperation.
And so I say, measure our platforms. In every instance you will find theirs cost more in money, and they also cost more in something that is much more precious than money, the potential freedoms of this country. Ours will produce the progress. Theirs will talk about it. You say, how do you know? Well, my answer is, my friends, look at the Eisenhower 7.5 years and compare them with the Truman in the 7.5 years, and whether it's in building schools or hospitals or increasing wages, real wages for our citizens, we have just done better than they have. They talk a good game, but we do a good game, and that's what we're going to continue to do for the people of the United States.
Vote in the Senate just this year, he voted against the amendment, which would have allowed each of the states to decide for itself whether to use federal aid for school construction or teachers' salaries. And no legislation of benefit to the people of this country that bears his name. The only reputation and standing he has and has acquired is that of a shrewd and calculating politician who can talk out of both sides of his mouth and be on the both sides of every question at once. Senator Kennedy, on the other hand, has earned the respect and affection of the men who worked with him in the Senate. He has been for a number of years a member of the Senate Committee on Foreign Relations and is chairman of its subcommittee on African Affairs. In this committee, year after year, he has studied and participated in the making decisions on the most important questions of foreign policy. He is also a member of the Senate Committee on Labor and Public Welfare and chairman of its subcommittee on labor. Here, he has had the principal responsibility for handling much of the most important legislation considered by the Senate in recent years. And so, my friends, when people begin to talk about experience, just remember this. There's good experience and there's bad experience. And in this presidential election, most of the experience of the Republican candidate has been bad. And most of the experience of the Democratic candidate has been good. And when you begin to count experience, be sure that you count carefully and that you add correctly to see which one ends up with a minus and which one ends up with a plus.
Today we know the wisdom of this principle is still applicable, despite the great changes in our society that massive industrialization and population growth have brought about. Yet we are beseeched on all fronts to deposit more and more functions and authority in the hands of central government. Sometimes we abdicate local responsibility consciously in the false hope of permanently ridding ourselves of some nagging problem. In other instances, it is done unknowingly, as we become too preoccupied with other matters to observe the extending reach of centralized authority. In either case, the net result is to diminish further the freedom that flourishes best where responsibility is held and authority is exercised close to home.